Chapter 1. The unexpected letter. The envelope arrived on a crisp autumn morning in 1952, tucked amid the usual stack of mail that cluttered my narrow apartment mailbox in Seattle. I was rummaging through it half-heartedly, my mind elsewhere, on the mounting debts from my failed attempts at college and the dead-end job at the cannery that barely kept me afloat. The paper was heavy, almost luxurious, with my name, John Harlan, scripted in elegant black ink that seemed to shimmer faintly under the hallway light. I didn't recognize the sender, Aunt Beatrice Harlan, from Whispering Pines, Montana. I had no aunt by that name, at least none my parents had ever mentioned before they passed in that car accident years ago. Her letter was oddly affectionate, as if we'd shared a lifetime of secrets. She wrote of watching my struggles from afar, knowing the weight of solitude after losing family young. She offered solace in the form of a summer position at her herbal remedy shop in the remote town of Whispering Pines, nestled in the rugged foothills of Montana's Bitterroot Mountains. Room, board, and a modest wage included. It sounded preposterous, a phantom relative emerging with a lifeline just as my world teetered on collapse. Bills piled up like snowdrifts, and the city's relentless rain mirrored my despair. Yet, desperation has a way of dulling skepticism. I penned a reply that very night, accepting her invitation. The bus journey eastward was interminable, winding through endless forests and over mountain passes that grew wilder with each mile. Seattle's gray sprawl faded into vast expanses of pine and aspen, the air thickening with the scent of earth and resin. By the time I arrived in Whispering Pines, a forgotten speck on the map with no more than a few hundred souls, exhaustion had woven a haze over my thoughts. The town was a cluster of weathered wooden buildings hugging a single dirt road, flanked by towering evergreens that whispered in the wind. Aunt Beatrice waited at the station, her figure slight but commanding, dressed in a simple woolen dress the color of faded moss. Her silver-streaked hair was pinned back, and her eyes, sharp, piercing blue, fixed on me with an intensity that made me shift uncomfortably. "John," she said, her voice warm yet laced with an undercurrent I couldn't name. "You've come at last. The mountains have a way of calling their own." She led me to her shop without further preamble, a two-story structure at the town's edge, its sign reading Harlan's Remedies in peeling gold letters. The interior was a labyrinth of shelves brimming with jars of dried leaves, roots, and powders, the air heavy with the mingled aromas of sage, chamomile, and something sharper, almost metallic. Upstairs was my room, sparse but clean, with a window overlooking a garden that stretched into the encroaching woods. That first night, as the wind howled through the pines, I lay awake, questions gnawing at me. How were we related? Why me now? But sleep claimed me before answers could form, lulling me into a dreamless void. Chapter 2. Settling in. The days blurred into a rhythm dictated by Aunt Beatrice's quiet efficiency. She taught me the basics of her trade, grinding herbs into fine powders, steeping infusions in copper pots that bubbled softly over a wood stove. "These remedies heal more than the body," she murmured one afternoon, her hands deft as she measured out willow bark for a pain elixir. "They touch the spirit, the land itself." Whispering Pines felt worlds away from Seattle's clamor. Here, silence reigned, broken only by the occasional creak of floorboards or the distant call of an owl. The garden became my sanctuary and my puzzle. It sprawled behind the shop, a riot of plants that defied the harsh Montana soil, vibrant foxgloves nodding in the breeze, thorny vines twisting like serpents, and unfamiliar blooms that glowed faintly in the twilight. "Tend them well," Aunt Beatrice advised, her smile enigmatic. "They give back what you put in." I weeded and watered under her watchful eye, feeling a strange pull from the earth, as if the roots whispered secrets just beyond hearing. Clients trickled in sporadically, locals with weathered faces and stories etched in their lines. An old miner named Elias came for a salve against his aching joints, his hands gnarled like tree roots. A young mother sought a tea for her child's fever, her eyes darting nervously. They paid in coins or bartered goods, fresh eggs, woven baskets, and left with hushed thanks. Aunt Beatrice handled them with a grace that bordered on reverence, but she deflected my questions about the more peculiar ingredients. In time, John, she'd say, her voice a soothing melody. The land reveals itself slowly. Nights brought unease. The woods pressed close, their shadows lengthening across the garden like grasping fingers. I dreamed of voices murmuring in the dark, calling my name with increasing urgency. Waking, I'd find Aunt Beatrice's light still burning downstairs, the faint clink of glass suggesting she worked through the hours. Curiosity gnawed, but her presence was a balm against the isolation. For the first time in years, I felt anchored, even as doubts simmered beneath the surface. Chapter 3. The first oddity. It began subtly, a ripple in the calm. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, a stranger approached the shop. He was tall, his frame cloaked in a heavy coat despite the mild air, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. "For the ache," he rasped, placing a small pouch of what looked like polished stones on the counter. Aunt Beatrice nodded, retreating to the back room without a word. She returned with a vial of murky liquid, its contents swirling like storm clouds. The man took it, his gloved hand brushing mine accidentally, or so I thought. A chill seeped through my skin, lingering long after he vanished into the night. "Who was that?" I asked, rubbing my hand. Aunt Beatrice's expression tightened, her eyes flicking to the window. "A wanderer from the hills. They come for what the town can't provide." Her tone brooked no further inquiry, but sleep evaded me that night. The garden seemed alive in the moonlight, leaves rustling without wind, and I swore I saw shapes moving among the rows. Ethereal, fleeting, the next day brought more peculiarities. While sorting shelves, I uncovered a hidden drawer beneath the counter, filled with yellowed papers, recipes scrawled in faded ink, diagrams of plants with annotations in a language I didn't recognize. One page depicted a flower with petals like flames, labeled "Fireweed's Kin, binds the unseen." Aunt Beatrice caught me examining it, her face paling momentarily before she composed herself. "Curiosity is a double-edged blade, John. Some knowledge cuts deep." As weeks passed, the clients grew stranger. A woman with eyes like polished obsidian arrived at dawn, her skin pale as birch bark. She exchanged a bundle of feathers for a pouch of ground roots, her gaze lingering on me with unnerving intensity. "He has the look," she whispered to Aunt Beatrice, who shushed her sharply. I pretended not to hear, but the words echoed in my mind, stirring a dormant fear. Chapter 4. Deepening shadows. Whispering pines revealed its layers like peeling bark from a tree. I ventured into town occasionally, seeking normalcy amid the oddities. The general store owner, Mr. Grady, eyed me suspiciously. "Beatrice's kin, eh? Mind the woods, they swallow folk whole." His words hung heavy as I returned to the shop, where Aunt Beatrice awaited with a new task, brewing a tonic from night-blooming jasmine. Its scent heady and disorienting. That night, a storm rolled in from the mountains, thunder rumbling like distant artillery. Lightning illuminated the garden in stark flashes, revealing figures, or illusions, huddled among the plants. I watched from my window, heart pounding, until a knock echoed below. Descending, I found Aunt Beatrice admitting a cloaked visitor, their conversation a murmur of urgent whispers. "The binding weakens," the stranger said. Aunt Beatrice replied softly, "He'll learn." Morning brought clarity and confusion. The garden bore no trace of disturbance, but a new plant had sprouted overnight, a thorny vine with leaves that shimmered iridescently. Aunt Beatrice regarded it with satisfaction. The land responds to need. Her lessons intensified, mixtures that glowed faintly, salves that tingled on the skin. I mixed them mechanically, but a growing unease clawed at me. Dreams plagued my sleep. Visions of endless forests where trees whispered my lineage, hinting at secrets buried in Harlan blood. One afternoon, a young man entered the shop, his features strikingly handsome, with chestnut hair and eyes that shifted from hazel to gold in the light. "Elias sent me," he said smoothly, leaning on the counter, "for the elixir." His smile was charming, too perfect, and I felt a pull, an inexplicable urge to confide. Aunt Beatrice intervened, handing him the vial with a warning glance my way. "Remember the rules, John. No names, no invitations, no bargains." Her words, once cryptic, now felt like lifelines. Chapter 5. The turning point. Autumn deepened, leaves turning fiery hues that mirrored the unease in my chest. The shop's rhythm accelerated. Clients arrived in clusters, their appearances increasingly bizarre. A man with fingers elongated like branches, a woman whose shadow seemed to move independently. They bartered oddities, crystals veined with light, feathers that hummed faintly. Aunt Beatrice handled them with poise, but her fatigue showed in the lines around her eyes. I confronted her one evening over supper, the fire crackling in the hearth. "Who are they really? And what am I doing here?" She set down her spoon, her gaze steady. "Your family, John. The Harlans have tended this place for generations. The remedies bridge worlds, the seen and the unseen. The mountains hold old spirits, and we keep the balance." Her words hung in the air, a veil lifted partially. Spirits? It sounded like folklore, yet the evidence mounted. The garden's unnatural vitality, the client's otherworldly traits. That night, the handsome young man returned, alone. "John," he purred, knowing my name though I'd never given it. "Why hide behind rules? Invite me for a talk. We could share so much." His eyes gleamed, promising knowledge, power. I faltered, the air thickening with temptation, but Aunt Beatrice's voice echoed in my mind. "No," I said firmly, stepping back. He laughed, a sound like cracking ice, and departed, leaving a chill that seeped into my bones. Dawn revealed Aunt Beatrice gone. The shop was empty, her bed untouched. Panic surged as I searched the house, the garden, calling her name into the indifferent wind. On the counter lay her ledger, open to a page inscribed, "The shop is yours now. Keeper. Serve those who come. Uphold the rules. The mountains will sustain you." My world tilted, trapped in a role I hadn't chosen, the weight of legacy crushing down. Chapter 6. Isolation's grip. Days stretched into a solitary vigil. Clients came as before, their needs wordless, their payments enigmatic. I prepared remedies from memory, the process instinctive now, as if the knowledge seeped from the walls themselves. The garden flourished unnaturally, vines encroaching on the house like possessive lovers. Whispering Pines townsfolk avoided me, crossing the street with averted eyes, whispering of Harlan's curse. Nights were the worst. Shadows danced in corners, voices murmured just beyond comprehension. I dreamed of Aunt Beatrice, her form dissolving into mist among the pines. Waking, I'd find tokens on my pillow, a leaf veined with silver, a stone etched with runes. The handsome stranger haunted the periphery, appearing at dusk with tempting words. "Break the rules, John. Freedom awaits." His presence stirred a dark curiosity, a yearning for the forbidden. That I explored the attic, uncovering trunks of Harlan relics, journals detailing encounters with mountain folk, beings of legend, bound by ancient pacts. One entry chilled me. "The keeper must remain, or the veil tears." Was this my fate? Isolation gnawed, eroding resolve. Letters to Seattle went unanswered, as if the outside world had forgotten me. Chapter 7. Temptation's edge. Winter's approach brought biting winds, snow blanketing whispering pines in silence. The shop became my prison and refuge, the remedies a tether to sanity. Clients multiplied, their forms more distorted. A figure with antler-like protrusions, eyes glowing like embers. Another whose skin rippled like water. They regarded me with expectation, as if testing my worth. The stranger, whom I named Silas in my mind, escalated his visits. "You've the blood," he whispered one stormy eve, pressing close to the counter. "Join us beyond the rules. Power, eternal life." His touch on the wood left scorch marks, his smile revealing teeth too sharp. Temptation warred with fear. The rules chafed, promising only endless servitude. In desperation, I brewed a forbidden mixture from the ledger, a vision elixir. Drinking it, visions assailed me. Harlan's past, binding spirits to protect the town, sacrificing freedom. Aunt Beatrice's face appeared, pleading, "Hold fast." Awakening, resolve hardened, but cracks formed. Silas's allure grew, whispering of escape from the mountain's grasp. Chapter 8. The breaking snowstorms isolated Whispering Pines further, the world shrinking to the shop's confines. A crisis struck. Elias returned, wounded by an unseen force, his blood staining the floor. I tended him with remedies, but his whispers revealed truths. Aunt Beatrice had vanished to reinforce the veil, leaving me as successor. "Don't falter," he gasped. Silas exploited the chaos, appearing nightly with gifts, a crystal pulsing with light, promising clarity. "Invite me in," he urged. Loneliness peaked. I nearly yielded, uttering the words. But a garden vine lashed out, barring him, a reminder of the land's will. Madness loomed. Hallucinations blurred reality, spirits manifesting, demanding service. I scrawled in the ledger, chronicling descent, questioning my sanity. The rules bound me, but breaking them beckoned with perilous freedom. Chapter 9. Climax of despair. The veil thinned on the winter solstice, spirits swarming the shop in ethereal forms. Chaos erupted, furniture splintering, winds howling indoors. Silas materialized fully, his true form revealed. Horned, eyes abyssal. "Choose now," he demanded. "Join or perish." I confronted him, vial in hand, a binding elixir from forbidden pages. Chanting ancient words, I hurled it, light exploding. Spirits wailed, Silas recoiling in agony. But the effort drained me. Visions of Harlan's falls flashed, each keeper succumbing eventually. Aunt Beatrice's spirit appeared briefly. "You must seal it." With trembling hands, I invoked the final rite, binding myself deeper to the land. Silas vanished in smoke, but victory tasted of ash. The veil mended, but at what cost? Chapter 10. Eternal vigil. Spring thawed the snow, but not my burden. The shop endured, clients returning subdued. I tended the garden, its vitality mine now, roots entwining my fate. Whispers of escape faded. The mountains claimed me wholly. Years blurred. 1952 became distant memory. Whispering Pines persisted, its keeper eternal. The ledger grew with my entries, a testament to sacrifice. Freedom was illusion, duty, the true chain. In quiet moments, I wondered if Silas waited still, beyond the veil, for the next crack. Yet, in the garden's bloom, a strange peace settled. The Harlan's legacy lived on, bridging worlds, one remedy at a time. Trapped, yes, but perhaps in that binding found. Conclusion. As the seasons cycled relentlessly through Whispering Pines, I, John Harlan, found myself woven ever tighter into the fabric of the town and its enigmatic secrets. Spring's thaw had brought a deceptive renewal, melting the snowdrifts that had blanketed the mountains in a hush of white, revealing the earth's raw, pulsing life beneath. The garden behind Harlan's remedies burst forth with an unnatural vigor, vines creeping higher up the shop's weathered walls, flowers blooming in hues that defied the pale Montana sunlight, crimsons deeper than blood, violets that shimmered like amethysts under the moon. I tended it daily, my hands calloused from the soil that seemed to cling to me long after I'd washed them clean. The plants responded to my touch as if they recognized me, not just as a caretaker, but as kin, their roots delving into the same ancient veins that coursed through the land that I in those early months following Aunt Beatrice's disappearance, or ascension, as I sometimes thought of it in my quieter moments. I grappled with the isolation that had become my constant companion. The shop's bell chimed sporadically, summoning clients from the shadows of the pines. They were no longer mere oddities to me. I had come to understand them as echoes of the mountain's hidden inhabitants, beings caught between the corporeal world and something far older, more primal. Elias, the old miner with his gnarled hands, returned often, his visits a ritual of sorts. He'd shuffle in at dawn, his boots caked in red earth from the abandoned shafts up in the bitterroots, and exchange a handful of quartz crystals for a tincture that eased the phantom pains of his long-lost youth. "You're holding the line, boy," he'd mutter, his voice gravelly like the rocks he once hewed. "Don't let M through." I nodded, measuring out the dried foxglove and nightshade with precision born of necessity. The rules Aunt Beatrice had instilled in me, no names, no invitations, no bargains, had become my mantra, a shield against the temptations that lurked at the edges of my vision. Silas, that handsome phantom with his shifting eyes and predatory smile, had not vanished entirely. He appeared in glimpses, a shadow flitting through the garden at twilight, a whisper carried on the wind that rustled the leaves into unnatural patterns. "Freedom," he'd hiss, his voice threading through my dreams like smoke. But I held fast, brewing words from the ledger's forbidden pages, mixtures that burned the air with acrid scents and kept the veil intact. Years slipped by, 1952 fading into the haze of memory like a half-remembered dream. I delved deeper into the Harlan legacy. The attic, once a dusty repository of forgotten relics, became my archive. I'd climb the creaking stairs after closing the shop, lantern in hand, and pore over the journals of my ancestors. Great-grandfather Harlan, who had staked his claim in Whispering Pines during the gold rush of the 1880s, wrote of the mountain's bargain, a pact forged in desperation when fever swept the mining camps. He described visions of ethereal figures offering cures in exchange for guardianship, their forms flickering like candle flames in the wind. "We bind them, and they bind us," he scrawled in ink faded to sepia. "The remedies are keys to doors best left shut." His son, my grandfather, chronicled the Great War's echoes, how soldiers returning from Europe brought with them spiritual wounds that no doctor could mend. He'd mixed salves infused with mountain essence, drawing out the darkness that clung to their souls. And then Aunt Beatrice's entries, more cryptic, laced with warnings. "The veil thins with each generation. The keeper must be vigilant, lest the unseen flood the world." Reading these, I felt a kinship across time, a chain of duty that linked us all. Yet, it stirred a resentment too, a fire in my chest that questioned why I, an orphan from Seattle's rainy streets, had been chosen to bear this weight. The town itself seemed complicit in my entrapment. Whispering Pines, with its population hovering stubbornly around 300, moved to a rhythm dictated by the seasons and the shop's quiet influence. Mr. Grady at the general store would nod curtly when I came for supplies, his eyes avoiding mine as if gazing too long might reveal too much. "Harlan's keep to themselves," he'd say, bagging flour and salt with mechanical efficiency. The children, bundled in wool against the chill, whispered tales of the witch's garden as they passed, their laughter tinged with awe and fear. I wondered if they knew the truth, that the remedies I dispensed warded off more than colds and aches. They quelled the stirrings of ancient forces that slumbered beneath the earth. One crisp autumn in 1955, as leaves carpeted the dirt road in gold and scarlet, a new face appeared at the shop's door. She was a woman of middle age. Her hair streaked with gray like mine was beginning to show, dressed in a practical coat that spoke of city origins. "I'm Clara," she said, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. "Clara Harlan. I received a letter from Beatrice." My heart stuttered. Another relative? The envelope she produced was identical to the one that had summoned me. Thick paper, elegant script. But Aunt Beatrice was gone, her essence dispersed into the mountain's mists. Or so I thought that I invited her in. Carefully, adhering to the rules, no full names exchanged beyond necessity, and brewed tea from safe herbs, chamomile and mint that carried no hidden power. Over steaming cups, she spoke of her life in Chicago. A distant cousin branched off the family tree during the Dust Bowl migrations. She wrote of struggles, Clara said, her eyes scanning the shelves with wary curiosity. Said there was work here, a place to belong. I recognized the pattern, the Harlan way of drawing in the lost. Was this how Aunt Beatrice had ensnared me? Or was it the land itself, weaving its web? I showed her the garden, where the vines now formed intricate patterns, like runes etched in green. She gasped at the blooms, their colors pulsing faintly. "It's alive," she whispered, reaching out to touch a petal that recoiled at her fingers. That night, as wind howled through the pines, I pondered her arrival. Was she a successor? A test? Silas's laughter echoed in my mind, distant but mocking. I decided to teach her, slowly, the basics, grinding roots, steeping leaves, watching for signs of the blood's awakening.